Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. DraftKings Week 4. I've got a first look for you. NFL DFS is the game that we love to play. If you are looking for the recap video, just like last week and every week in the future, it is on my second channel. There will be a link down below, both in the description if you click show more and in the pinned comment. So the top comment in the replies is going to have a link to the second channel, to the recap video on the second channel. Please, if you would be so kind, go over there, subscribe to the second channel, make sure that you click the notifications bell there. We have our rule here and there, same rule. Every video needs to get 10% likes of the views. I'm not going to ask for a specific number because every video is different. But if a video gets 10,000 views, it should have 1,000 likes. If a video gets 20,000 views, and this video should get between 20 and 25,000 views, we need 10% likes. So your target is somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500. It's up to you to make sure that we get there. Costs you absolutely nothing. Definitely go watch that recap video as well, where I go over basically everything that I did last week, from the article on ESPN Plus to my lineups, tournament and cash on DraftKings, my lineups over on FanDuel. We talk about my results. And I think it's a very important piece of the process, but it was kind of clogging up the first channel. So I moved it over to the second channel so that you guys could still see it every week, and so that I could have my first channel do the things that it needs to do. Now, before y'all give me trash about the cover boy on this week's first look, we need to rewind a week and talk about Austin Ekeler, who was our cover boy last week on first look, and y'all plugged your noses and, you know, turned your cheeks on it and said, nah, why is Austin Ekeler the cover boy? Austin Ekeler was the cover boy last week for the same exact reason that Kenyan Drake is the cover boy this week, and we'll get into it in just a little bit, but it's someplace that I'm going to go every single week for fantasy goodness because they are just so good to stream against. Anyway, I appreciate y'all being here. Thank you very much. Drop a like on the video. Y'all know what to do. Click a damn thing, leave a reply, do stuff. It helps. Appreciate y'all. Let's get to the video. Quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson's really good. They priced him up. Pricing this week from me taking a quick look over on DraftKings and FanDuel, for that reason, is a little bit tighter than it's been the last couple of weeks. So if you like a little bit tighter pricing, you're going to like this week. If you like the pick'em that it's been for a couple of weeks, you might struggle a little bit more making lineups. Lamar Jackson up to 8,100. You can still get him in there if you want. You're going to have to sacrifice a little bit. We try and do a few things on this first look lineup. We want to get a quarterback with an expectation of 20 or more DraftKings points. We want to get, and if you want to use a multiplier quarterback, you know, people say, well, 3x is what gets you to your 150 points because you have 50,000 in salary on DraftKings, right? Like you see that right here, 50,000 salary. So if you just triple that for every 1,000 you spend, then you get 150 points. If you score 150 points on DraftKings in cash, then you typically will make the money, which is true. But like, you can't bank in 3x on a defense. It's way too highly variant. Quarterbacks, you should probably have some way to get closer to 4 times their salary, right? And especially because of the narrow scoring band for quarterbacks and the narrow pricing band on quarterbacks, right? Most of the quarterbacks fall between 7K and 5,800. You kind of want to be able to get yourself 4x from your quarterbacks when at all possible. So I try and focus on 20 plus points with access to a ceiling of 30 plus points for my quarterback to try and keep it a little bit more simple. Lamar Jackson clearly has that. Russ Wilson has been absolutely insane this year with 4+ touchdown passes in every single game, getting the bonus in 2 of the 3 games. Now he goes to Miami to face the Dolphins. He's got 2 guys that can't be stopped in Metcalf and Lockett being utilized and deployed in 2 totally different manners. Lockett getting deep, but also working underneath. Metcalf usually trying to stretch the field. And then obviously he's going to pepper in his tight ends because he's Russ Wilson and he does kind of pepper in his tight ends from time to time. Spreads it out around when they get inside the 10-yard line, around the end zone, but focuses the majority of his red zone and end zone targets around those 2 guys. So always going to be great to stack Russell Wilson this year for tournaments. But I think we can get a little bit better, a little bit cheaper, save some money to get us the running backs and wide receivers that I feel that we need this week, because they have the higher ceilings, a wider scoring band between the top and the bottom. Mahomes against New England, if you want to go with it, fine. Josh Allen's been an absolute revelation this year. Last year, the problem with Josh Allen was he never really accessed his ceiling, meaning 30 plus fantasy point games that we thought he was going to. But now in his third season, he's done it all 3 weeks. Granted, 2 of those weeks have been against Miami and the Jets, but like against the Rams, who are a very good defense, completed over 70% of his passes, got you the 300-yard bonus, 36 DraftKings points, scored a touchdown on the ground. He's got 2 rushing touchdowns so far this year. And Singletary, though he was the main guy this week because Zach Moss was injured, was not very efficient with the goal line or inside the 5 carries that he got. He got stuffed a few times. Josh Allen, probably their best goal line threat, then Zach Moss when he comes back. Dak Prescott, the traveling fantasy carnival that is the Dallas Cowboys offense and defense. Second straight week over 30 points, 57 attempts. He's gone up about 10 attempts every single week. 39 week 1, 47, then 57. Let's see if he throws 67 this week against Cleveland. Spoiler, he won't. But 40 attempts is clearly in play. And as I say every single week, attempts, volume is not the thing that quarterbacks or that leads to greater quarterback scoring, right? So it's like, oh, he's going to throw it 50 times, so I'm going to win. Efficiency is what drives quarterback scoring. Touchdown percentage drives quarterback scoring. Efficiency by running the ball or having access to rushing touchdowns drives quarterback scoring. Now, if you have an efficient quarterback like Dak Prescott is, and he throws the ball over 40 or 45 times, you have the best of both worlds. You have an efficient quarterback throwing to talented wide receivers who also is going to throw the ball a ton and have access to a 300-yard game plus multiple touchdowns every single week. He's extremely expensive. All these guys are, for good reason. Kyler Murray, also good, 7,000. Talked about 4Xing. He needs 28 points. He's averaging 28 points. So, like, quarterback scoring has kind of gone bonkers this year because of the floor that these guys are getting out of their rushing touchdowns and how efficient they've been through the air. Kyler Murray with 5 interceptions, though, through 3 weeks. 3 of them coming last week held him from having a 30-point fantasy day. His worst output of the season coming against Detroit, who was not expected to perform very well against them with as little of a pass rush as they get and how squishy they've been in the defensive backfield. They picked him off 3 times. He did have another rushing touchdown, 4 of them so far on the season. So Kyler's got a tremendous floor and access to a ceiling here. I think we can get some players who are priced a little bit lower. Jared Goff is certainly in play with the matchup against the Giants and in Los Angeles. Ben Roethlisberger against Tennessee. I'm iffy on this one, especially for cash. Cam Newton, though, this offense I think is better. And I like the fact for tournaments that people are going to look at that game against Las Vegas and say, well, he didn't really do much that game. He had 12 fantasy points, but this is a great bounce back opportunity as quarterbacks typically score over expectation against the Kansas City Chiefs because A, they're playing from behind and forced to throw more, not unlike he was against Seattle in week 2. And Kansas City's defense, their D line is very good, but their defense, not all that great. They are a bend, but possibly don't break defense, but they give up a lot of points too. They just outscore you more weeks than they don't. So there's a high floor plus ceiling combo for Cam, and his price came down from 6,800 in week 2 to 6,700 in week 3, and now 6,400 in week 4. So I'm going to plug Cam Newton. Let's look at a couple of cheaper options because it is first look and people want to hear me talk about other players. Tom Brady at home against the Chargers defense. If Godwin is healthy and Evans clearly is the man there as well, and they're getting at least routes run this year out of OJ Howard, Gronkowski on the field a little more, and Scotty Miller has been a revelation. There's a lot of players that Brady can utilize in this passing game as a guy who likes to spread the love around on his wide receivers, but hasn't gotten you the 300-yard game, throws it about the same amount every single game. Ceiling is going to be tough for Tom Brady this year, especially compared to all the quarterbacks that have that rushing floor plus ceiling that we're seeing. Guys like Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, Russ Wilson, Cam Newton. There's so many guys, Josh Allen, that have realistic expectations of 28 or more fantasy points. Tom Brady would have to throw for 4 or 5 touchdowns and get the 300-yard bonus to get to where those guys are or can get to with maybe 350 yards, 50 rushing, 1 rushing touchdown. So tougher for guys like Brady or Ryan to get to those points. Joe Burrow, we saw what Miami did against Miami last week, 6,300. As long as his wide receivers stay healthy and the emergence of T. Higgins that we saw in week 3, this is a good offense. It's a bad offensive line, but it's an offense that's going to throw the ball a lot. He's been very, very good as a quarterback. We're going to have to dig more into this matchup as the week goes along. You can pair him with his slot guy. You can pair him with AJ Green. You can pair him with T. Higgins for a little bit cheaper. Slot guy being Boyd. There's ways to go in tournaments with him. Stafford going up against New Orleans at home. If you want to buy into that, I'm fine with that. I don't know if I really want to pair him with anybody. And also the Lions, great at first half scoring, really bad at second half scoring. Nick Foles taking over the job in Chicago. This game doesn't have as high a total as the other games. Named right before we started recording this video as the starting quarterback there. And very easily matchable in tournaments with Allen Robinson, who Allen Robinson was having Trubisky-induced inefficiency. He would catch 100% of the balls that were thrown his way. Nick Foles, in my opinion, a better quarterback than Mitch Trubisky by however much. And then you guys can pick some lower price guys that we'll get into later in the week on other shows like Top Stacks, Lineup Builder, when we really dig deeper into that. Let's go to the running backs. I said he was a cover boy. I put him on the list, and the reason is this. Carolina is really, really bad on defense, especially against running backs. They've allowed a running back to score at least 1 touchdown in 14 straight games. Not good. Well, good for us, right? So Kenyan Drake, I think, has a few things working for him here. His price is only $6,000. He has gotten 19, 22, and 18 touches in all 3 games this year. He has a very defined role in this offense for $6K. So it's not like, well, he hasn't performed and he's not getting volume. We're getting the volume out of him. He just has only scored 1 touchdown. Now, it is a little bit more alarming to me that he only has, 5 targets through 3 games. That's an issue for me. And I think that what this offense has done with the inclusion of Nook Hopkins is they're essentially giving those short passes, those little flips, those little checkdowns, the screens that Kenyan Drake was getting last year in the flat. Those are basically all funneling right now towards Nook, which means that Kenyan Drake has to get it done on the ground. But people had this same issue last week with Austin Eckler. Well, they're not throwing him the ball. Well, he caught 11 passes against a defense that can't stop opposing running backs from catching passes. So I would not be shocked if Kenyan Drake saw 4 or 5 targets here in week 4. I would not be shocked if his efficiency spiked on the ground here in week 4, averaging about 4 yards a carry. Wouldn't be shocked to see that jump to like 5, or him bust off a big play with his longest run this year being 16 yards. Wouldn't be shocked to see him have a 25 or a 40-yard run this week against Carolina. And I also wouldn't be shocked to see him score a touchdown this week. At $6K, all of those things on the table makes him a very easy candidate for me to plug in here at $6,000. Some other high dollar running backs, and I think that Team Jam 'em in is certainly in play here, but that's not the route that I'm going to go in cash games. Alvin Kamara has seen a absolutely ridiculous 8, 9, and 14 targets. The last 2 weeks, though, somewhat of an anomaly because Michael Thomas has not been on the field for the Saints. When he comes back, you're going to see Kamara see a dip in his market share of targets. He'll still carry a heavy volume of targets. He'll probably still get 7 to 10 targets every week, but like 14 targets, probably not really a thing. We talked about this. He's never going to be a high volume guy in terms of carries. He's never going to get more than like 15 carries in a game unless he is the only guy that's there for them to hand the ball off to. It's just not what they like to do with Alvin Kamara. So this is just absurd. These 14 targets, 13 catches, and they're easily convertible because they're really close to the line of scrimmage. He's going to be extremely popular here at $8K against Detroit's defense. I'm not going to play him in this lineup. Ezekiel Elliott, though, against Cleveland, you can play either one of them. I am just happen to be a Zeke stan, apparently, this year. I was drafting him over Saquon Barkley. I got lucky there that he avoided injury and Saquon didn't. So most of my season-long teams where I had a top 3 pick, if I didn't pick Christian McCaffrey, I picked Ezekiel Elliott at 2 or 3. He's just going to get a lot of touches, guys. Home, favored, realistic path to 20 or 25 touches. has inclusion in the pass game, and gets inside the 5 carries. He checks all 5 boxes that we want to check off as a fantasy running back on DraftKings. I will say the exact same thing that I have said for the last 3 weeks. Ezekiel Elliott is a $9,500 running back on DraftKings. He is currently priced at the bargain basement price of $7,800. He's priced to move. Get in now at crazy smizzles. I'm 100% playing Ezekiel Elliott in this first look lineup because all those reasons. Why are you not? In the replies, please, if you're not going to play Ezekiel Elliott, please just tell me why you're not playing Ezekiel Elliott this week. Like, what would be the reason? Because again, checks all 5 boxes and is an absolute stud. I'm still playing him. Another running back that I want to look at here, and there's a lot of guys, right? Like Eckler had a big breakout game last week. Pittsburgh's defense is good, but Derrick Henry is a monster. I want to dress up as Derrick Henry for Halloween because he's an absolute monster. He's going to scare. Like if I have a Derrick Henry costume, it'll scare the children. Like very scary, right? If you see this grown man running at you from 40 yards away at full speed, that's scary, right? That's a Halloween costume waiting to happen. 7,400. The running, you can play anyone you want at running back because they're just so cheap. Nick Chubb, again, I'm probably not going to go to him this week against Dallas, but you can. I'm probably going to, if I'm going to play running back from this game, I think that Dallas is going to play from ahead. They're going to have to play faster, which means looks like more of a Kareem Hunt sort of script. Connor against Tennessee, 6,900. We saw the volume that he got. I know that people's issue with James Conner is that he, even if he goes into a week healthy, he can leave a game in the middle of the game. That's totally viable. I understand if you don't want to go that route. I tend to focus on home favored running backs, but we don't really have as many this week as we had last week. Josh Jacobs will certainly get the volume playing back at home in a game that should be maybe a little bit closer. He's got a massive role in this offense. Taylor saw his volume dip massively from week 2 to week 3 in a strange way, but still averaging 16.7 DraftKings points, and it's only 6,600. James Robinson going up against Cincinnati, who we've been targeting a lot. His inclusion in the passing game has been outstanding. 6 targets and 4 targets the last 2 weeks, but it's never really going to be a 20 touch or a 20 carry guy because the Jaguars theoretically should not be playing from ahead most games. So the fact that he's not going to come off the field in 2-minute drill or in large down and distance, long down and distance sort of situations helps, but the price hike from 5,200 to 6,500, I don't know that he has the really high touchdown expectation that some of these other guys have. I mentioned Kareem Hunt, Devin Singletary, if Moss is out, is viable. Joe Mixon, I just never play Joe Mixon. The guy that I do want to play is Darrell Henderson. If Cam Akers is still out, I have to preface it by saying that, and right now I'm assuming that he will still be out with the rib injuries that he had. Darrell Henderson has looked really, really good and has wrested this job away from Malcolm Brown. Price has only come up 400 from 5,400 to 5,800. We have a great matchup with the New York Giants. They are playing at home. They are favored. They should score a lot of points. Should the Rams. Again, this is a 5-box checking running back for us here on First Look. I'm going to take the value there. More value will open up during the week because it always seems to this year, because that's just the way that games are going. A lot more injuries this year, or seemingly a lot more injuries, at least to high-profile players than there were in previous years, even though the numbers don't really add up to that. DeAndre Hopkins, 8,500. If you want to go that route, if playing Kenyan Drake in your DFS lineup turns your stomach and you just can't bring yourself to do it, then play DeAndre Hopkins. But DraftKings hasn't priced correctly. He's at 8,500. So a guy that's going to get you this sort of usage, granted it's full PPR, so like great, is priced higher than Zeke, who's going to get 25 touches and maybe 4 or 5 catches and has more touchdown equity because of his volume of inside the 5 carries. I don't get it. I don't care. I like it. I want to play those running backs. So like you should theoretically in cash be able to get 65 or 70 or more touches out of the 3 running backs that you play. That should be your target every single week. At wide receiver, we should be trying to get at least 25, if not 30 targets from our wide receivers. DeAndre Hopkins is a very easy path to getting that if you want. But you know who else is at 900 cheaper? Michael Thomas should probably be back from his ankle injury this week. At least all signs point to yes. From what we're hearing, moving really well during Friday workout. So now we're 4 days past that. And he's got another 6 days until game day. So if Michael Thomas is 7,600, this is a 9K wide receiver. I'm going to take the discount, not even think about it, especially with the fact that he should be a double-digit target guy at 7,600. It's absurd that he's priced here if he's healthy. I'm going to hope that he is healthy and go with it. Tyler Lockett, seeing a price increase. Never going to avoid Tyler Lockett in tournaments. His price has climbed to a point where I need to expect 10 targets out of him, and I kind of feel like he's going to be an 8-target guy most weeks, and so is DK Metcalf. And we said this on the Anti-Tinkercast this week, that who should you play, Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf? And I said, well, they're kind of the same. Lockett has a little bit more target upside, and DK Metcalf has a little bit more deep pass upside and end zone target upside. And 1 week, one of them is going to score 2 or 3 touchdowns, the other one's not, and that's going to make the difference. And that's literally what happened in week 3. Tyler Lockett not going to be a 3-touchdown a week guy, but he does have touchdown expectations as long as Russ is throwing the ball as many times as he is. More of a tournament play for me in week 3 based on the fact that I can get Mike Thomas for 7,600, which is a little bit absurd, which means we're going to have to find a little bit of value. Let's find out exactly how much value we're going to need. I'm going to plug in a random defense. Fine. Seahawks versus Miami, whatever. Let's look at the other defenses really quick. Yeah, they're all in this range. Fine. The DraftKings, in my opinion, has done a really good job of pricing up defenses. And the down defenses are now defenses that don't get very much pressure on the quarterback, with maybe the exception of Houston, who gets a little bit of pressure. But like, you look at these guys, like the Lions don't apply any pressure. Washington does apply pressure, but might be without Chase Young. The Dolphins don't really do a great job of getting pressure. Giants don't do a great job of getting pressure. The Raiders have 3 sacks through 3 weeks. Not good. Panthers, not good. 2 sacks through 3 weeks. You got to get pressure on the quarterback. And again, target defenses that should see an opponent dropping back more times, as opposed to targeting a defense you think isn't going to give up a lot of points, right? You don't want to play against a team that's going to drop back 17 times. You want to play against a team that's going to drop back 45 times to give you more access to scoring. Tight ends, I have an average of 4.3 in this lineup, so I really can't afford the expensive one. So you want to play Kelsey, go for it. You want to play Andrews, who is going to have some ups and downs in tournaments, great. Obviously, they play on Monday night this week, so I don't have his routes run. I don't have his percentage of routes per dropbacks yet, because they haven't played yet. So that's something that we're going to have to monitor after Monday night's game, and the tracking is done there. He is running more routes, or at least in week 1, he ran more routes per dropback than he did last year, and like way more. And then in week 2, it regressed to what last year's numbers were. So I need to find out where this is going to settle, especially at that price. Mark Andrews is a high ceiling play every single week, but if he has last year's usage, then he's going to rely on efficiency, and he was impossibly efficient last year, and that's completely unsustainable on the amount of routes that he ran. I think he ran like the 28th amount of routes of all the tight ends in the league last year, and was like the tight end 3. Like, that's not, you can't get that many catches and touchdowns if you're not out in the pattern as much. So I was very encouraged by his week 1, but not now. So we'll have to look back at this after Monday night. Tyler Higbee is another guy playing like 60-70% of snaps for the Rams, running routes on only 40% of Jared Goff's dropbacks. They are utilizing him to pass block. They are throwing the ball to Woods, to Kupp. They're throwing the ball to Jefferson and to Reynolds. They're throwing the ball to the backs a little bit more this year. Tyler Higbee has had great scoring output, especially in week 2, where he scored 28 points, 7 points in week 1, 8 points. He caught a 2-point conversion here in week 3, but he's going to be a really high variance target for you to play in your lineups at 5,700, considering that he's just not running routes and he's just not getting targets. You can find tight ends for $2,000 less on DraftKings that are getting double, if not 2.5x the amount of targets that he gets every single week, running routes 70+, 80+% of the time, they're not on as great a scoring offenses as Tyler Higbee is. So Tyler Higbee has more opportunities maybe once they get inside the red zone. But like, this is not a high floor target at tight end. Please treat him as such. He is a high variance, tournament only play at this point. Evan Engram, 4,400, running a ton of routes. Maybe he's just blab, but like, I like the amount of targets that he gets, 7, 8, and 5 over the first 3 weeks of the season. Hasn't really had a breakout game yet. Is going to be playing from behind against the Rams, so theoretically they should be throwing the ball more. And one injury to their passing game. If you can trust Danny Dimes to feed Evan Engram the ball, great. I think that his volume is going to be steady moving forward. Mike Gesicki, same sort of a situation where he only got 3 targets against Jacksonville. That probably should have jumped, but he did score a touchdown, which kind of salvaged it a little bit. High ceiling, medium floor sort of guy. TJ Hawkinson ran a ton of routes last week, 7 targets. I think that he's going to start emerging. 4,800. Eric Ebron, though, at 4,200. Running a lot more routes. They've increased every single week through the first 3 weeks of the season. I think that he is clearly the best tight end on this team, and maybe one of the best end zone targets. I have him and Juju, the 2 primary end zone targets that this Steelers team should have. Made a fantastic touchdown catch in week 3. And if Deontay misses week 4, and he has a concussion, so at best right now on Monday he's questionable, Eric Ebron could very realistically see another 6 to 8 target game for only 4,200 in a closely contested conference matchup here, division matchup here. I'm fine with Eric Ebron at 42, leaving me 4,400. So we got to find a couple of value plays. Landry, volume hasn't been what I thought or what I wanted it to be, with only 7 in the last 2 weeks total, 6 in week 1. This is a ground and pound team behind Stefanski. They're trying to get 40 rushes a game. I don't know if they're going to be able to. I think that we can go to those Cleveland Browns wide receivers this week because Dallas is going to speed up the pace at which you run, and they should theoretically be playing from behind as well. Darius Slayton kind of laid an egg in a situation where we thought that he wouldn't. 7 targets, only caught 3 of them against San Francisco. San Francisco missing a lot of parts on defense, but still, schematically and talent-wise, still a very good defense. The Rams, also a very good defense. Going to be interesting to see if he catches Jalen Ramsey here. Marvin Jones Jr., only 3 targets with the return of Galladay. He's a boomer bust play for me. All these guys, Emmanuel Sanders, in my opinion, will take a step back in terms of his targets, and not really going to be open deep. He's going to take a step back because Michael Thomas is returning. Ruggs, we have to monitor this injury throughout the week at 4,800. Love him if he's healthy. Obviously can't play him if he's not. Hunter Renfrow, one of the highest guys on my week 3 air yards per route run list with 9 targets at 4,600. Sure, he may be a fall guy, but I don't care if you fall, if you're getting targeted down the field the way that he is. I like the way that the Raiders are utilizing him. Clearly you can't really key on him, especially if Ruggs is out there. With Waller and with Ruggs and Josh Jacobs getting stacked boxes all the time, the best thing we can say about Hunter Renfrow, and it's a great thing for Hunter Renfrow, is he's just going to get to roam free against zone defenses or against second or tertiary cornerbacks, where those are the guys that he can kind of beat up a little bit. And he's going to be a guy who gets you a bunch of targets. He's going to get you some easy yards. Not going to be a guy that's going to break tackles, not a big yak guy, not going to break tackles and get downfield. If he catches it in open space, sure, he's going to run. That's where his yak's going to come from. If you want to go with him as a value, mid-range value play, I'm fine with it. Andy Isabella, big breakout for him in terms of touchdowns in week 3, but only 4 targets. 2 of them turned into touchdowns. That was without Christian Kirk there. Now, if Christian Kirk comes back, where are they going to play Isabella? I'm not seeing the path to touches and targets and opportunity here for Isabella. And at 4,500, up from 3,800, he is a massive boomer bust play. Tournament only is going to come nowhere near a cash game for me. The 2 guys that I do want to focus on at this range to finish off this lineup, N'Keal Harry dropped down from 4,200 to 4,000. What you want to focus on with the Patriots, are the Patriots going to be forced to open it up and throw the ball to try and keep pace? Or are the Patriots going to be able to lock it down, play very slow, and run the hell out of the football? In a game against Kansas City, I don't think that the second option is going to be there for them, which means that they're going to have to throw it 30 plus times. If they throw it 30 plus times, N'Keal Harry has a very realistic opportunity to get you 7 or 8 targets in that game. In week 2, we saw them in a chasing game, him getting 12 targets, catching 8 of them for 15 DraftKings points. 4K is just too cheap in a speed up matchup against the Chiefs, where they're playing on the road and are going to have to throw. Yes, there are game scripts in this game where New England gets ahead and tries to run the clock and bleed and play slow. There are also way more game scripts where Kansas City, who is favored in this game, gets out to a lead and the Patriots and they score 28 to 35 points, and this Patriots defense can't hold, and New England has to throw it 30 to 40 times with Cam Newton. If he does, N'Keal Harry at 4K is simply too cheap, and will be the guy who gets the end zone targets once they get close. So plug him in, leaving me with 4,800 left to go. There's one guy that I want to talk about. Arizona, another team that's going to speed up how you play. He's going to get carries in the backfield, 4 of them each of the last 2 weeks. He was targeted 4 times. He's 4,800, and he's a big play waiting to happen. There are plenty of other plays that I identified in this range, and if you feel better about those, that's fine. I personally am a Curtis Samuel stan. I am going to go with him this week on first look. That can easily change by the time the week is done, as injuries start to come out on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday practice reports. As always, this is not a plug and play lineup. If you're here to fast forward to this point and copy pasta this lineup and slam it into a DraftKings game, you're a donkey. Don't be that guy. Watch the video, pay attention to the process, learn how to fish for yourself, build great lineups this weekend. Look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.